I'm going to walk you through today the process of how to design your diet. A lot of people pay me big money to go through this and design this for them and track this in an Excel sheet so we can figure out their basal metabolic rate and how healthy their mitochondria actually are. And we can restore this mitochondrial health by paying attention to the micronutrients but also the macronutrients. So when somebody just tries to tell you to take a supplement, it's baloney. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. But you've got to pay attention to the foods you're putting in. Once you fix this process of aerobic respiration that I talk about, converting oxygen to carbon dioxide, you barely need supplements. It's pretty simple. So you just need to eat real food. You need to get rid of all the processed stuff. But when you're trying to figure out the macros, which are just as important as the supplements that you're taking, you got to get the basics right first before you start tweaking things with supplements. So the number one thing is you got to figure out, how do I know how many calories I need? And you always want to take your body weight, but not your whole body weight. You want to take your lean mass. So let's say we have a giant bodybuilder who has 200 pounds of lean mass. To make the math easy, you can convert this to your numbers, but this is a formula. So you're going to take 200 pounds of lean mass, right? And you're going to take that times 10, and you're going to take that times 20. That's going to be your minimum amount of calories times 10, and your maximum amount of calories is times 20. So, in other words, you need 2,000 to 4,000 calories. That's a broad spectrum, but you got to figure out where your basal metabolic rate is, and you're going to have to start somewhere. So, let's just say you have a poor metabolic rate. Most people that come to see me don't have a very good metabolic rate. It's pretty pathetic because they haven't been eating well, they've been under eating, they're not prioritizing sunlight, they're eating a lot of processed foods, their sleep sucks, all these problems that they have with their life. They're not following the 7 basics: water, food, rest, exercise, mind, environment, EMFs and lighting, and posture. They're not following it. So they have problems and they can't make energy efficiently. So we got to start low and then change the metabolic rate slowly over time. So in that, let's just say we wanted to do low metabolic rate. We're going to take it times 1.2. So we took 200 pounds times 1.2. We got 2,200 calories, 2,200 calories. So if you got 2,200 calories, what you want to do is you want to figure out how much fat do I need first, right? So if you're going to figure out how much fat you need, what you want to do is it's got to be about 20 to 30% of your total calories, okay? So if we take, let's just start on the low end, because most people are poor fatty acid metabolizers of European descent, because you have FADS genes, SLC genes, you have PEMT, right? You have these different genes that are expressed because of the poor lifestyle factors. You don't metabolize fats well. So we probably want to start at a lower amount. So what we would do is take our 2,200 calories and we multiply that by 20% times 0.2. So we end up with 440 calories of fat. So if we have 440 calories of fat, we want to know how many grams is that. We divide that by 9, because there's 9 calories every gram of fat, and we get 49 grams of fat. That's how many grams of fat that you need in your diet. And that's, remember, for fats, you want to make sure that you're getting saturated fat. You don't want the polyunsaturated fats. The polyunsaturated fats are extremely problematic. They clog the cell membrane, don't allow insulin to get in. They oxidize very easily. They don't have hydrogen bonds. So we want to pick animals that are ruminant that eat seeds and grains and convert them to stearic acid, because now we have a diet of 20% fat, of saturated fat primarily, and your body's going to sulfate that cholesterol, hopefully, because you're getting sunlight, and now you're going to make your sex hormones. That's what cholesterol is needed for, right? Sex hormones, to make your sex hormones, you need cholesterol, acetyl-coenzyme A from your Krebs cycle, and B vitamins. You're going to get that from your protein sources. So we have 49 grams of fat. Then we're going to figure out how much protein do I need. So if we want to figure out the protein, we're going to take our lean body mass. So if we have 200 pounds of lean body mass, and we multiply that 200 pounds by 1, because you need a gram for every pound of lean mass that you have, now we're at 200 grams of protein. Okay, so we have 200 grams of protein. What's that going to be? 200 grams of protein times 4, because there's 4 calories, is 800 calories, right? So now we have 800 calories from protein. So we know that we want 2,200 calories, right? So we just had to take our calories from our fats and proteins and subtract that. So we take 2,200 calories that we're consuming, we minus that by 800, and then minus that by the 440, and we end up with 960 calories. So we get 960 calories. We want to divide that by 4 because there's 4 calories in every gram of fat or every gram of carbohydrate. We end up with 240. 240 grams of carbs. And everybody's scared of eating carbohydrates, but guess what? Get over it. Stop believing that carbohydrates make you fat because they're protein sparing. What happens is when you don't eat enough carbohydrates, you go into metabolic damage. The carbohydrates, your body functions best on glucose. So in order for you to have a healthy metabolism and have a high metabolism through high T3 to make your sex hormones, because it converts in your liver to do that, you need these. Now, if you don't eat the carbohydrates, you do low carb, you will lose body fat for a while until you damage your cell. So what happens is when we don't eat carbs, your cortisol levels go up to mobilize triglycerides to be burned as fat. Now, your body has to use glucose for your brain function. Has to use it for other cellular function. So what happens now is it takes your proteins through gluconeogenesis by raising glucagon to make glucose. Gluconeogenesis is a stressful state to your body. It basically slows down your metabolic rate. You can't have elevated cortisol consistently. What do the cortisone shots do to your tissue? It breaks down tissue. It makes it weak and you are more prone to injuries. You can't get too many cortisone shots. High cortisol is the same thing. So now your body's breaking down, your metabolic rate slows, you don't know why you're sick, you don't know why you can't lose weight. Well, it's because your body's gone kaput. You abused it. You didn't give it carbohydrates. You need glucose. Gluconeogenesis and keto and carnivore are not a sustainable choice for fat loss or for health for that matter. You will create chronic disease by lowering your T3 rate. So, now, we figured out that we need 49 grams of fat. We need 240 grams of carbs. And we need 200 grams of protein. But how do we design that? How do we figure it out? Well, you got to count your calories. You got to figure out what I'm going to do. You know, you got to go to like Calorie King, or you got to go somewhere and start logging all this stuff, right? And you got to map it together. But you do need basic nutrients, okay? And so, like I said, we want saturated fat. Saturated fat comes from our ruminant animals, okay? Elk, bison, venison, lamb, grass-fed beef. Those are the tickets. Stick to those meats. That's our protein sources. Fat sources. You probably won't have a lot of room for excess fat. But if you do, you can use butter and you can use ghee and you can use coconut oil. Those are okay. But you got to fall in that 20% range. If you're healthy, you can get by with up to 30% of your total calories coming from fat. And ultimately, if you're healthy, your diet should be 33 of carbs, fats, and proteins, okay? So you're going to have to play with these numbers a little bit to get them right. So the rest of this is carbohydrates. And what carbohydrates should you choose, right? Sugar is medicine to the pancreatic beta cells, so you can use sugar. If your metabolic rate's healthy, you can do it. If you're not healthy, you have to slowly ease into it. You might want to start with a tablespoon of sugar in your coffee in the morning or something. That would help, right? Because sugar lowers cortisol, so that might help. But primarily carbohydrate-wise, you want to stick to fruit and honey, white rice, and white potato, right? You want non-starch resistant carbs. You want to spike your insulin fast and have it drop. You don't want to keep it elevated. All the stuff about fiber and keeping it steady throughout the day. You keep it steady, but you keep it steady higher. We just want to spike our insulin. Insulin drives nutrients, and then lower it back down, right? Let your body regulate it. You won't get the crash if your mitochondria are healthy. You got to work on that cortisol to DHEA ratio and fixing aerobic respiration. This is just the process of starting it. And we're starting at a lower calorie amount so that we can slowly increase the calories. Now, I would also include liver in my protein. And they only need 1 ounce a day. It's not a big deal. If you don't like it, you can grind it in there. The reason why is because it contains your copper and it contains your vitamin A. It's your retinol form of vitamin A. You need that for your copper to bind to iron to make hemoglobin. If you do not get vitamin A in retinol form, beta-carotene is not a good solution. Beta-carotene is found in your carrots and your peppers, those bright yellow colors and orange colors. That's where it's found. But most people don't convert that beta-carotene into vitamin A very efficiently. And you need that to fix copper-iron redox. Otherwise, you end up with hemochromatosis or iron dysregulation. Your body rusts from the inside out. So we also want to make sure we're getting all of our minerals. An easy solution for that is to make sure that you're eating oysters. Oysters are the best source to get your minerals. What do we need to make our antioxidants to fix aerobic respiration? To make antioxidants, you need minerals and you need amino acids, proteins. That easy. Now we make the antioxidants. We have too many free radicals. We have enough antioxidants. We cancel it out. I would also include raw milk, not pasteurized milk, raw milk, because it contains the enzymes that you need to metabolize the dairy, right? Everybody's worried about lactose. Well, if you have lactase in there, it's not denatured from being heated, it'll work. Because you need calcium in your diet to lower your phosphorus levels. Eating more protein increases phosphorus, and phosphorus overstimulates the immune system. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough calcium in our diet. Then we want to make sure that we're getting collagen in our diet. So collagen will go into the protein, and you're getting 20 to 30 grams of collagen, right? 2/3 of our body is actually collagen, and it's a semiconductor for light, right? And so now we're getting the collagen that lowers epinephrine. When you eat protein, without enough carbohydrates, epinephrine's high. So it's a protective mechanism there that lowers your cortisol, right? And we lower our cortisol, DHEA levels will be higher, and we want a low cortisol to DHEA level. So collagen, because of the proline and the glycine, has to be in that macronutrient. When you figure out all that Excel sheet and you're putting your numbers in, trying to figure out how do I design this, that has to be a factor. So you may get your 49 grams of fat, your 240 grams of carbs, and your 200 grams of protein. That has to be in there. So, special accommodations that people have, and I'm going to knock the next person out that says, what about MTHFR? Because genes are the gum and environment pulls the trigger, and I'm tired of people preying on others on these gene mutations, because they do exist. But when you do things right, they don't express themselves anymore. So we just got to get the factors right through our nutrition and our lifestyle, getting sunlight, and we regulate those. Because MTHFR, if you give someone who has that gene expressed and they are an undermethylator, you're going to cause them big time problems with fatty acid metabolism and the transsulfurization pathway. And now they're not going to metabolize those fats, and they're going to make more peroxynitrate. It's not a good solution for somebody just to give them methylated folate because they have an MTHFR gene. And you have to know whether it's expressed or not. You have to know whether that person's undermethylator or overmethylator. Which way are they going through the methylation cycle? So, don't recite the nonsense that's on the internet because it's garbage. You have to get things right. Start with the basics. If you don't know what's wrong, just start with the basics. Stop the processed food, go in the sun, but then figure out how many calories does my body really need. And so you start with this. A 200-pound person times 10. Minimum amount of calories that I need is 2,000 calories to sustain my life. At least start with that. And then design the diet, figuring out all the other processes that I talked about with the carbs, fats, and proteins, and choosing the right ones, right? Remember, ruminant animals. No more fish, no more chicken, no more turkey. All those things contain linoleic acid that clog the cell membrane. They're fed seeds and grains. They don't have 4 stomachs. Make sure you do that. Make sure you're choosing better carbohydrate sources, non-starch resistant carbs, right? Honey, real sugar, right? Organic table sugar is fine. And then you want to make sure that your fats, you're cooking with butter and ghee, and you're not using vegetable oil, canola oil, safflower oil, all this stuff that they're adding into the processed foods. You don't want those things. So that's the process that I go through when I develop someone's diet, and then it still has to be monitored. But at least we have now a base that we can fluctuate and change. So I want you just to start out by structuring things this way. And by doing that, you'll stop a lot of gene expression. You probably won't even have to worry about the genes, but the genes are what I use as an indicator for maybe how much fat we should start with, or if we need certain micronutrients. There's a case in point to look at your genes. It kind of tells me where the break is and the oxidative damage is that's actually slowing your metabolic rate. So it's an indicator, but you have to know how to use it, and you can't just listen to random people online and just start taking things randomly, because a lot of times you're going to make things worse and push things in the wrong direction, actually make more free radicals, because that wasn't your gene that was expressed. You're just guessing. Fix aerobic respiration, lower your cortisol, eat pro-metabolic, and you'll be healthy.